thanks for joining me here on Mom Squad. I'm Maureen Kyle, and this is a show where we cover all types of topics and issues related to parenting, the hardest job out there. And it's an especially hard job when you have a sick kid in the house. This year is the time of year all kinds of viruses are spreading ahead of the holidays. We want to make sure that we are healthy as we head into those family gatherings. Right now, the CDC estimates there was as many as 2.6 million flu cases in the U.S. between October through November. They also estimate that between 12,000 to 27,000 people were hospitalized. And as we've realized over the past couple of years, holiday parties and gatherings can be super spreaders when it comes to germs. So today, I sit down with pediatrician Dr. Candis Platt-Houston from MetroHealth Medical Cente in Cleveland. She and I talk about the ways to keep your family healthy and what symptoms you should watch out for. So this is the time of year where germs are already hitting. And then we've learned over the past couple of years, those family gatherings, the holidays, the Christmas parties, the other parties, New Year's, we're going to be gathering a lot more. That exposes us to more germs. First of all, maybe we start with what should we be thinking of in terms of, protecting ourselves from germs as we head into this very busy gathering season?
So one of the first things I like to advocate for is, of course, getting vaccinated, immunized. So we have the flu vaccine, COVID vaccine, and now the new RSV immunization for babies. Mm-hmm. So that would be the first thing I would recommend. But then also things like hand washing, so washing your hands for at least 20 seconds, covering your cough. So I like to teach my pediatric patients and adults to cough into their elbows, not into their hands. If you're sick, try to make sure you stay home, don't go to that party, don't send your kids to school. And also, we do know that masks can also be a great protection. So if you know you're coughing or not feeling well and you're going to be around people, considering putting that mask back on. Mm-hmm.
It's also, I've just noticed lately a lot of people saying, oh, my child is sick. Oh, we have a cough in the house. Or, oh, now there's a sore throat. What symptoms would you say are concerning? Like, when do I know? I think I struggle with this even though I've been a mother for 10 years. Mm-hmm. It's always that hard to tell moment of like, when do I take my child into, like an urgent care or to go see their pediatrician?
Okay. A lot of times I tell parents, your child best. Mm-hmm. So if they're really acting sick versus they have a fever, they have symptoms, but they're still playful. But if they're not acting themselves, not eating, not drinking, sort of just laying around, high fever, those are times you want to go in. Of course, if they're having shortness of breath. Mm. So typically, with a cold, you may get runny nose, slight fever, cough, but typically they're still able to play. If it's the flu, it hits them a little harder, so they may be more apt to lay around. Mm-hmm. Fever may be a little bit higher. More cough symptoms. Mm-hmm. If you're thinking about COVID, again, they might appear even more sick, have more symptoms. In addition to the cough and runny nose, they might have vomiting, diarrhea, mm-hmm. things like that. Yeah. Sore throat, you can sort of see it with all of those.
Okay. I want to go through some of the differences between some of these viruses too, because especially with COVID, it seemed like it was so varying depending on who would get it. Some people just had a slight tickle in their throat, and then there were people who had such severe symptoms. So are there differences that you can tell between a cold, a flu, mm-hmm. COVID? Like, what are those differences that we should be looking out for? Are there differences?
Again, a lot of times the symptoms are the same, that the severity may be different. Mm-hmm. So again, with the cold, it's going to be the runny nose, cough, sneezing, maybe a sore throat, mm-hmm. but still able to do their typical daily activities. The flu can be more debilitating. You may not want to get out of bed. I always tell parents it's hard for adults, so you can imagine, you know, a child with flu. You may have sore throat, some achiness. You may get the chills, higher fever with the flu. Same thing with COVID. You're going to have those flu symptoms, but again, you may have the addition of vomiting, diarrhea, and even in kids sometimes conjunctivitis or pink eye.
Oh, wow.
You may see that.
Yeah. Which virus are we seeing hit worse right now? You know, like late November, early December.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're seeing the start of all of them. The flu, we normally can see as early as September, and it goes through the spring. Same thing with all of them. So all of the numbers are trending upward. And again, we're seeing the RSV. And RSV can lead to pneumonia, bronchiolitis. So you may see wheezing with the RSV, which you don't really see in the other ones.
Okay, so I remember as when my kids were babies, especially, I always heard like look at their side to see if it was like sinking in, to see if that's how you could tell they were struggling breathing. But what should I be looking out for? Babies all the way through bigger kids.
Right. So babies, if they're sick, they're really not going to want to eat. So they'll stop either wanting to nurse or drink their bottle as much. You can see signs of respiratory distress like nasal flaring. So their nose will sort of flare in and out. Also, the retractions you were talking about. So we look here, so sometimes you'll see tugging here in the neck, and then the rib cage, stomach muscles. Those are signs that they are having difficulty breathing, so you definitely want to get them in. Coughing is more concerning in babies. We don't typically see them cough much, so when they're really coughing, we get more concerned with the babies.
With that new vaccine for RSV, is there a certain age group that should be getting it more than others? Is it available and recommended for all age groups?
Yes. So the RSV, we actually refer to it more as an immunization because it's different. We're actually giving the baby antibodies, so it's different than the traditional vaccines. So for that immunization, ideally, we want to get babies immunized within the first 7 days.
Wow.
Up to 6 months. And then if they are high risk, 8 months.
Okay.
After that, it really depends on if they have severe complications or health history that would put them at more risk. So really, if your baby is between infant and 6 months of age, then they're eligible for the RSV immunization.
Okay. What if there's, like I have an 8-year-old, that's my middle. And what if we are going to be around babies because, you know, of a cousin or something around the holidays? Should kids be getting this immunization, or is it really just like make sure the baby?
It's only for babies.
Okay.
Yes. And that's just because that's when we see the severe symptoms of RSV. In other children, older children, it may look just like a cold, but in babies, again, they can get pneumonia, bronchiolitis, admissions into the intensive care unit. So we're really trying to protect that age group.
Yeah. You brought up coughs. And even in my own household, I was telling you before we started recording here, like my oldest, she has just had this cough. We keep taking her in to the pediatrician going, is she okay? Because it just seems to be lingering. Yeah. Talk to me about coughs in general, just because I feel like, you know, I never want to ignore a cough that just begins as a regular cough, but then can turn into something else. But can you talk to me about just the lifespan of that virus?
Yes. So typically the cough can linger longer, so the runny nose and the congestion sort of gets better, but that cough can linger sometimes for 2 weeks. So normally what I tell parents is, you know, symptomatic care, you know, give them fluids. We don't recommend cold or cough medicines in kids under 6. Typically they don't work, and then sometimes parents can get frustrated that they don't work and then give them multiple cold medicines, which, you know, can lead to being overdosed. So a lot of times I just encourage them to hang in there. And the other thing with kids is sometimes they get back-to-back colds. So you're excited, the symptoms are going away, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, it's starting back up again.
Yeah.
And that's just because of the multiple different cold viruses, which is normally caused by rhinovirus and, you know, the different flu viruses that are out there. But as long as they, if they're vomiting with their cough, that would something to be concerned about. They're coughing so much that they vomit afterward. If they're complaining of stomach pain, and again, that high fever, or, you know, any kind of chest pain or struggling to breathe.
Would that be a sign of what, like bronchitis, or would that be a sign?
It could be a sign of pneumonia.
Pneumonia, okay. That's what I'm always worried about, because I know as an adult, I've had a minor cough that then didn't go away, and then it turned into bronchitis. So is bronchitis a situation that, can that follow that path with kids?
It could, I mean, but typically in kids, you know, we either see more of a bronchiolitis or a pneumonia.
Okay.
But, you know, sometimes sinus infections can cause a cough as well. So, you know, postnasal drainage. So those are different things that can contribute to the cough.
I want to go back to treating the symptoms too, because I think that's what a lot of parents struggle with, especially if you have those children who are younger than 6, because you want to do something for them.
Right.
And it's sort of like, what can I do? They're not allowed to take this medicine yet, or I don't know. There's also those type of kids, I'm not going to name kids in my household, that don't like the cough medicine. So then they're like, that's gross, I don't want to take it. So what are some ways that we can relieve those symptoms for kids who won't take medicine or can't take medicine over the counter?
So for the stuffy nose, you can use nasal saline just to really moisten the nose, try to help with that congestion. If you have an infant, it's a little easier to suction the nose by using the nasal saline. Cool mist humidifiers can help. Even just the steam in the bathroom, you know, turning on the hot water, letting the bathroom steam up. Really making sure they're having a lot of vitamin C. So I always say, you know, those oranges are great. Honey, you know, some people say that can work. So you can try that, which is, you know, a natural cough suppressant. There are a lot of natural cough medicines out there for younger kids, but mainly it's things like honey and things like that.
I've tried with the honey. Sometimes it's accepted, sometimes that's not. But I've also heard not the honey in the little bear, but it has to be more of like a raw honey. Like, is there a difference between the two?
So normally the raw honeys, but particularly if you're getting them local, they're better because they're fresh, and then they have, I want to say, sort of more protection against what's in our own environment locally.
So with also just some of the coughs and the colds, are there any other symptoms that would stand out as, oh, if you have this symptom, you should get checked for this type of virus? Just because we've been talking a lot about like cough, runny nose, cold, fever, and still, no matter how many times I go through it, I still can't figure out exactly what they have. And I know parents want to figure out exactly, okay, what am I dealing with? Do I need medicine? Do I need amoxicillin? What are we doing?
Right. And a lot of times we can't tell until we actually swab and see. So I tend not to do that unless the kid, you know, maybe has a high fever, appears more sick, or, you know, if a family member says, well, we're going to be over at grandma's for the holiday, we don't want to, you know, take anything to her. So sometimes we can't tell exactly until we, you know, swab to see what it is.
Yeah. Talking about even protection a little bit more, because hopefully you're healthy in your household and you want to prevent all of this. The timing of a flu shot, if a family decides, you know, I want my kids to get the flu shot, at this point in the season, are we a little too late to have it kick into effect by the holidays, or is now the time to get that protection?
Right. Definitely you want to get it as soon as possible. So normally I recommend as soon as the flu vaccine is out, go ahead and get it as soon as possible. Most vaccines take about 2 weeks to really work. In our infants, because we can give the flu vaccine as young as 6 months, they need 2 doses of it, 4 weeks apart. So getting it as soon as possible is great, but it's never too late to get the flu vaccine. Flu season sometimes runs into March or April, so never think that it's too late. And then as far as treatment, again, these are viruses, so we don't treat them with antibiotics. Unfortunately, they run its course. We use some antivirals in kids who have complications or who are more at risk, but generally we just let it run its course, and we save those antibiotics for bacterial infections like strep throat, pneumonia, things like that, ear infections.
Are amoxicillin, is that still going through a shortage?
Lately I have not had trouble getting it, but there was a shortage earlier.
When we look at the household, now this is something I always am curious about, and I always mean to look into it, and then, you know, somebody gets sick and I'm questioning, okay, what should I be cleaning on a daily basis? Like, should I be, for preventative, or if somebody is starting to show symptoms in the house, what are the household items do you think that hold the most germs where we should be washing and disinfecting?
Those touch points, so things that, you know, everybody is touching often, doorknobs, you know, things in the bathroom, even in the kitchen area. So things that you're touching multiple times are those things you want to make sure you're disinfecting.
Bed sheets, toothbrushes, should we like get a new toothbrush if a child is sick, or just...
So if your child has strep throat, you definitely want to get a new toothbrush, because that bacteria can also be on the toothbrush. So if they have strep throat, you do want to get a new toothbrush once they're on the antibiotics for a couple days.
Yeah. And then like sheets or blankets or anything like that, pillows, does that matter?
I mean, if the child, you know, has their own bed, you may want to wash them more frequently, or if they have an accident on them, but I don't think you need to wash them daily, but definitely you may want to wash them more frequently.
Yeah. With sending kids to school, you know, there was this, I think before COVID, we had this, you know, like, you better be losing a leg, you know, if you're going to miss school or work or whatever. And then during COVID, we went to the stay home no matter what situation. And now everybody is a little bit like, okay, wait, what are we doing? Yes. What would you say is if you're trying to make the decision of send to school, don't send to school, what's that fine line?
Yeah, so definitely if your child has a fever, they should stay home. If they're having vomiting or diarrhea, they should stay home. The cough and runny nose gets tricky because we have allergy season, cold season. So typically I say if your child is acting sick and not acting themselves, or just a continuous uncontrollable cough, you probably want to keep them home. The schools and daycares are getting more strict than they were pre-COVID. So sometimes kids will come in and they barely have a cough, and the daycares are making them go see their pediatrician to get a note to come back. But again, if your kid's acting sick, have a fever, and then if the cough is really bad, you do want to keep them home, because, you know, they are going to spread that germ, especially the little ones. They're not as good as covering their coughs.
How often should we be making sure that the little ones wash their hands?
Oh gosh, I mean, definitely if they're wiping their nose, coughing in their hands, you want to make them go wash their hands. If they're getting ready to eat, things like that.
Okay. And then something I was always curious about before I let you go, because I've heard many different opinions on it, multivitamins for kids. You know, I'm thinking this is the time of year that I do want them to have all their vitamins, have their immune system as healthy as possible. Then I've heard, well, no, it doesn't really work for, should I be giving my kids a multivitamin every day just to help with their immune system?
I always say it doesn't hurt. I mean, of course you really want them to be eating those vitamins and their fruits and their vegetables, but we all know kids are picky and sometimes they're not eating as healthy as we would like. So it doesn't hurt to give them a multivitamin, you know, especially during the winter season when we're seeing all of these viruses. But, you know, things with vitamin C are you know, the ones I really push.
Yeah. Anything else that you think parents should know about cold and flu season as we're heading into it that we haven't already talked about?
No, I think I just want to put a plug in for those vaccines and immunizations which do protect your child. It may not work 100%, but typically if you're vaccinated or immunized and you get the flu, let's say, you tend to have less severe symptoms.
Thank you again to Dr. Platt-Houston. Now remember to follow all the guidelines that we've been hearing about for years, like washing hands frequently, keep that hand sanitizer with you at all times, and if you want to, mask if you're sick. We hope everyone in your household stays healthy this season, and we'll see you right back here next time on Mom Squad.